I'm Susan Dixon. I'm the current secretary of the Chinese Historical Society. I want to welcome everybody here, newcomers as well as our regulars. We have an exciting night tonight. It was billed as our annual meeting, but due to circumstances, we will be pushing the annual meeting till September. Our monthly program in September, we'll have vote on the slate of officers and the vote on the bylaws. But with no further ado, I'm going to introduce our community historian, Eugene Moy, and he's going to introduce our tonight's speaker.
Thank you, Susan. And I think that community historian title is a little bit overworked. I'm just a stray cat out on the sidewalk. Anyway, I appreciate all of you joining us tonight. Welcome, everyone. We have our monthly meeting as part of our ongoing offerings of the Chinese Historical Society of Southern California. This is our last program of the current school year. I think we synchronized our program year to work with some of our leadership, many of whom have been teachers or school teachers. But it is appropriate. We all deserve a summer break anyway. Our finale, our June program, really is one where we'll hear a really interesting historical background in the program announcement that you probably have seen. The topic will be about the Square and Circle Club in San Francisco, which 100 years ago was formed and really commenced a record of community engagement by women of the Chinese American community. And we'll let our speaker tell you about all the things that they have done. But I'll tell you a little bit about our speaker. Lorraine Dong is, Lorraine Dong is emeritus professor of Asian American Studies at San Francisco State University. She's a native of San Francisco, Chinatown, and she received her raising and education all in San Francisco, except for her PhD work at the University of Washington. We know that Lorraine's interest has been in children's literature, and she's really proud of some of her work in a film called Sewing Woman, and I will ask a question about that too. And then she also was a co-author with a couple of stellar scholars, Philip Choi and Marlon Hahn, in a book entitled, in a book called, and I'll get it out here. Excuse my eyes here. In a book called The Coming Man, which I have actually on my shelf here, but Lorraine has been a known scholar in the Asian American community. She's been active in conferences, in addition to her teaching work. So I'll let Lorraine tell the story. I'd like to, would you all please welcome Lorraine Dong. Lorraine?
Okay, thank you. Let me start. Okay, does everybody see my PowerPoint? Yes, no?
Yes.
Lorraine,
Oh,
your
yes.
audio seems a little muted.
Am I muted?
No, I think a lot of people are muted.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay. Now
can you,
sounds
can
good.
you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Sounds
Oh,
better.
okay, then we're fine then, all right?
Yeah.
Okay, hello everyone. Today's PowerPoint presentation about Square and Circle Club's 100-year-old history of service and philanthropy is a revised version of what has been previously presented at other venues. The pictures presented have been chosen from our archives by co-presidents and co-historians, Claudia Jung and myself. Our club's archives are now permanently housed at the San Francisco History Center in the San Francisco Public Library. Okay, so let's begin. It was the 1920s. It was during the years of Prohibition and the start of speakeasies, bathtub gin, 23 skidoo, giggly girls, short shapeless dresses, three-quarter stockings, and headache bands. Yes, it was the 1920s. Out went Victorian America, and in came the Jazz Age or the Roaring Twenties. The flapper and the new American woman surfaced with bobbed hair and short skirts, breaking social and sexual norms. The Roaring Twenties began with a bang. The 19th Amendment was ratified on August 18, 1920, that granted women the right to vote. But America still had a long way to go. The Chinese in America were still living in the Chinese exclusion period that banned Chinese immigration, naturalization, land ownership, and many other rights. Basically, Chinese were not welcome nor wanted in the United States. In San Francisco, Chinese children were only allowed to attend the Oriental Public School in Chinatown. After much protest, the school changed its name to Commodore Stockton Elementary School in April 1924, but segregation continued until the end of the 1920s. There was also the option for many Chinese children to attend a Chinese language school. This is a 1928 picture of Zhonghua Chinese School on Stockton Street, the oldest Chinese language school in America. In 1924, and according to the 1920 census, Chinese women comprised of just over 10% of California's Chinese population. Chinese American women were a minority living in a society that opened up to women, but at the same time did not welcome the Chinese. From this historic socio-political period in San Francisco Chinatown, 7 idealistic and compassionate Chinese American young ladies, 15 to 20 years old, emerged. Alice Fong Yu, Anne Lee Leong, Bessie Wong Shum, Daisy K. Wong, Daisy L. Wong Chin, Ivy Lee Ma, and Jenny Lee. Anne and Ivy were sisters, with Ivy being the baby in the group. All attended the Chinese Congregational Church located in Chinatown. Some went to Girls High or Mission High School. Those who graduated either worked or attended San Francisco Teachers College, now San Francisco State University, or UC Berkeley. Like many children in Chinatown, the young ladies were educated in Chinese school in the afternoons and grew up bilingual. They were also very athletic, competing in track meets, playing basketball, and won trophies for the club. In 1924, North, Central, and South China was hit by a series of floods and famine that affected 15 million people, with over 13,000 deaths by mid-year. China was known globally as the land of famine. While at church one Sunday morning on June 15, 1924, the 7 young ladies decided to form a club to help China's flood and famine victims. They later named it Square and Circle Club, and the club was born. More members were recruited, and the membership quickly grew to 16. Mrs. Amelia Barter, an Oriental public school teacher, became the club's honorable advisor from its very start. She was listed as a 1924 charter member and conferred honorary membership in 1935. It was Alice Fong's Chinese teacher, Professor Feng Jishao, who helped the girls come up with a name and motto for this newly created club. He suggested a clause from Huainanzi, an ancient Chinese book of scholarly essays written during the early Han Dynasty. The book explains the meaning of this clause. Knowledge is round like a circle with no beginning or end point, while conduct, behavior, or deed is square like the parameters set by society. The girls took to this and called themselves the Square and Circle Club, and their motto became, "In deeds be square, in knowledge be all round." The young ladies chose black and gold for their club colors, and the club's first logo was simple, with just S, C, and the Chinese words for square and circle written in the shape of a round Chinese coin with its cutout square circle. This evolved over the years and became more stylized. 3 months later, on September 20th, 1924, the 16 girls held their first benefit dance for Canton flood and famine relief. The Examiner headline announced it as Occidental Jazz and Oriental Benefit, and claimed that it was the first Chinese women's benefit dance in the history of Chinatown. American punch was served, and jazz music was played by a 6-piece Chinese orchestra. Jackets and trousers were banned because jazz dancing was not practical in the dainty, modest little trousered costume of conservative China. And that's a quote. More bold was founding President Alice Fong, who was quoted in another paper declaring that Chinese American girls could do what men in Chinatown and women in America could do. The club raised approximately $250 or $4,400 in today's dollars. And here's the envelope containing the receipt of their donation check. Their first fundraiser was a huge success, done in 3 months on their very first year. Square and Circle began during the Chinese exclusion era and did not avoid political activism or civic engagement. As U.S.-born citizens, Square and Circle was involved in civic duty and activism on the local level, such as registering the people in Chinatown to vote. They also took the initiative to start a letter-writing campaign to keep the Chinatown playground open at night, and wrote letters to endorse the housing project for Chinatown and the opening of a community dental and health center. In 1932, they sent a letter to the Civil Service Commission to protest the ineligibility of a Chinese American from being a school nurse. Despite how the club was recognized by both English and Chinese media to have done great deeds for the community, they were not exempt from discrimination. In 1936, Square and Circle applied to join San Francisco's Women's City Federation of Clubs. The club's application was ultimately rejected the following year because no colored people were allowed. Nevertheless, Square and Circle persevered with their many fundraisers that focused on serving the local Chinese American community that needed help to survive a hostile political world. One of the club's earliest memorable fundraisers was in 1926, when the club set up a booth across the street from the Chinese hospital on Jackson Street and sold roast duck to raise money and community awareness for the hospital. The Chinese hospital was established because the Chinese population was underserved, if not ignored, by the city's hospitals. However, it was another fundraiser a year earlier, in 1925, that Square and Circle became famous for, the Hope Chest. The Hope Chest, usually a cedar chest, contained linen items such as towels and bed sheets, and miscellaneous items that were handmade by club members who met weekly to sew embroider, knit, and crochet. Once a year, this chest would be on display in the front window of a Chinatown store like Shanghai Bazaar. A raffle was held to win the chest and its contents. A dance and sometimes a tea also accompanied the raffle drawing to make additional money. All the proceeds from these Hope Chest fundraisers went straight to the community. Here is a 1929 article about the club's Hope Chest fundraiser. Besides dances and the Hope Chest raffle, benefit shows became the club's most popular fundraisers. Here are some examples. Here's a ticket for a 1929 variety show. Here's a program for a variety show in 1931. I'm showing this one mainly because in the early years, all of the club's fundraisers always included both Chinese and English. There would always be a Chinese component because they realized that the community did not all speak English and they wanted to be inclusive. Here's a scene from a 1933 variety show called A Girl for Every Month of the Year. Here is another picture from a 1934 fundraiser. And here is a 1940 annual benefit show called School Day Varieties. The club was also very famous for its fashion shows. Here's a newspaper clipping from 1935 about a fashion show. And here's a picture of a fashion show they did on Waverly Place in 1936. Community institutions that became beneficiaries of Square and Circle Club during the early years of the club's existence included, but not exclusively, the following institutions listed: the Chinese Hospital, Laguna Honda Hospital, the tuberculosis ward at the San Francisco County Hospital, Commodore Stockton School, Francisco Junior High School, Zhonghua Chinese School, and the YWCA. If you're wondering about the hospitals, it's they go there mainly to serve the Chinese American patients in those hospitals because especially the Chinese immigrant patients, they did not speak English. So the Square and Circle ladies went there to help them out. An annual December holiday service project involved members wrapping presents and visiting Chinese American patients at Laguna Honda, followed by distributing presents to foster children afterwards. A friendship fund and a welfare fund were also created to help individuals who needed and requested financial help from the club. The friendship fund specifically supported young women. Square and Circle was most famous for its orphans fund. Here are an article and a musical program dedicated to raising money for the Orphans Fund. This fund served mainly 3 Bay Area institutions that housed Chinese American orphans and foster children. They were the Zhongmei Home for Boys in El Cerrito, the Ming Kwang Home for Girls in Oakland and Los Gatos, and Meilan Yuan that served Chinese foster children in San Francisco. Of the 3 institutions, the club had a special bond with Zhongmei Home. The 2 collaborated on musical productions written specifically for the club girls and the homeboys to act, sing, and dance. For decades until the home's closure in the late 1950s, Square and Circle served and donated regularly to Zhongmei every year, if not monthly. Then came the war years. There were actually 2 wars that impacted Square and Circle as well as all the Chinatowns in America. The Sino-Japanese War from 1937 to 45 and World War II from 1939 to 45. Before the United States officially entered World War II with its 1941 declaration of war against Japan and Germany, the club was already deeply involved with supporting China's war of resistance against the Japanese. As early as 1932, Square and Circle supported China's war by making and providing bandages and surgical supplies to China. It was not until 1937 that Square and Circle became much more involved and active in China's war. They volunteered and raised money for the China War Relief Association of America, and they joined the Federation of Chinese Clubs, comprised of approximately 30 Chinese American clubs. In 1939, Madame Chiang Kai-shek made an urgent plea for winter garments for the Chinese soldiers. At that time, Square and Circle was about to use $250 of their Hope Chest proceeds to purchase warm blankets for the soldiers. Madame Chiang Kai-shek's plea changed their minds. They used the money to purchase 200 jackets instead. Another well-known woman activist during the Sino-Japanese War period was Dr. Margaret Chung, the first Chinese-American woman to become a doctor. She was a club member at the time. In September 1937, she recruited 12 Square and Circle members to do a fan performance for refugee relief at a midnight show in the Capitol Theater. The Federation of Chinese Clubs war relief fundraising activities included theater plays and dances. Square and Circle collaborated with some of the groups to put on many fashion shows for rice bowl parties as far away as Vallejo. Square and Circle had its track record for the benefit shows and was therefore in high demand to participate in many fundraisers. Here are two show examples from our archives. In 1937, they produced a variety show called Circus Varieties. Here's a ticket to it and a lady holding a poster. And here's a picture of the group performing in the Circus Variety Show. They also, in 1940, they had the Scude Varieties, which I have shown you earlier. So here's some pictures of that play. Then in December 1937, the club took the leadership role to urge Chinese American women to boycott wearing silk stockings as part of a national movement to boycott goods made in Japan. Alice Fong went to the YWCA and YMCA to encourage support for the boycott. A club motion was passed for members to refrain from wearing silk stockings and to report all violators. And amidst all of this, club members found time to help Commodore Stockton's schoolchildren collect tinfoil for the war. When the United States declared war in December 1941, Square and Circle continued to support China's war against the Japanese. But their fundraising now included America's war against Japan and Germany. For example, instead of helping only the China War Relief, they now donated to and helped to raise money for the American Red Cross. In 1942, Charlie Lowe, owner of the Forbidden City nightclub, requested the club to do a fashion show for the Red Cross and wrote them a very nice thank you letter. In 1943, as, quote, a patriotic service to our servicemen, unquote, membership also moved to donate and be in charge of an USO open house for Chinese servicemen. The theme was Valentine, and it was held at the YWCA. The variety of patriotic services during the early 1940s ranged from volunteering for the air warning service to donating subscriptions for Chinese American soldiers recuperating at the U.S. Marine Hospital in Stapleton, New York. All club members were also urged to encourage their friends to enlist in the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps. Square and Circle was definitely an essential Chinatown leader during the war years. They sat on various decision-making community boards and was a highly respected organization. So it was no surprise that the Chinese Six Companies requested the club to be at the Victory over Japan Day or VJ celebration in 1945. Members Daisy Louis and Wei Ying went to represent the club. There was one more war, 5 years after the end of World War II, the Korean War. During this war, club members sent care packages to the Jongmei boys who were drafted and stationed abroad in Japan and Korea. Our archives have many letters from them expressing how homesick they were and thanking us for the care packages. Members also wrote back to provide some feeling of home for the soldiers. Now let's look at the club's activities for the remaining half of the 20th century. The Chinese exclusion period ended in 1943, 2 years before the end of World War II, but there was still a lot more to be done to improve the lives of the Chinese in America. Square and Circle barely had time to rest after the war years of fundraising when in 1946 they received a request to support a bill on the entry of the United States of wives of Chinese American citizens. At the same time, they were overwhelmed by requests to support local community causes. Acknowledging the importance of supporting political issues for the community, club members also realized the limitations and decided to just focus on local needs. They made a big decision in 1946, which was Square and Circle agreed to support educational purposes locally and not support politics financially. Beginning in 1948, Square and Circle also began a discussion among themselves that they need to promote the club's community consciousness and should sponsor events for the whole community. They basically continued with what they were already famous for: their dances, variety shows, fashion shows, carnivals, and musical productions. Here are some posters made for these fundraisers. Many were designed by Louis Lowe, a well-known artist and husband of past President Alice Lowe. The club's fundraisers were so popular that they were often sold out in halls, theaters, and restaurants, large venues that had to be rented to accommodate the demand and wait lists. In most instances, these fundraising events were the social events of the year. Here are some examples of these events. This is a carnival in 1949 called the Gold Rush Carnival. By the way, almost all of Square and Circle events were they often made headlines in the media. The club had a choral group that was in high demand to perform in the community. This 1950s picture has member Pearl Joe at the piano. Next is Gu Ma Steps Out, 1950, one of the many and most popular shows the club did for and with the Jongmei boys. The boys also performed in this show, as well as co-founder Ivy Lee Ma, who played Gu Ma. Buttons and Bows was a musical in 1956 with the script written by member Rosemary Chan. Many shows were originally written, directed, and starred Square and Circle members, family, and friends. They built their own props and sewed their own costumes. Here's a scene from the play. And like most Square and Circle benefit shows that I mentioned earlier, this one was covered in both English and Chinese media. Following the legacy of their first jazz dance in 1924, the club continued to hold dances as fundraisers. Here is one in 1964, where attendees danced to the Watusi, Hully Gully, mashed potatoes, and swim for $3 a ticket. But perhaps the most famous dances were the New Year's Eve charity balls. In 1960, we held our very first New Year's Eve charity ball. In the champagne glass was Bernice Woon, club member and the 1954 Chinese New Year Parade Festival Queen, which is the predecessor to Miss Chinatown. This event took place at the Sheraton Palace for a $10 donation per person. Over 500 people attended and they ran out of food. In the following year, Nancy Kwan, wearing the mink coat, visited the club room after the Chinese New Year Parade in 1961. Other types of fundraisers included flea markets, rummage sales, benefit movies, book drives, bingo spaghetti nights, and luau's, the club's favorite theme. And here is one of our more elaborate luau fundraisers in 1972 called Hawaiian Holiday, with five of our founders dressed in their Hawaiian attire. Fashion shows were our most popular fundraisers. They were so popular that we even had monthly fashion shows at the Imperial Palace from 1960 to 63. And here's some more posters for our fashion shows. Then in the 1950s, we began offering scholarships to City College of San Francisco students. These were later extended to San Francisco State University and Mills College students. Graduating high school students were added in the 21st century. In 1977, a new fundraising idea came about, cookbooks. The first one had over 430 recipes. This was followed by 3 more cookbooks, each with different recipes. The 1977 cookbook was in such high demand that it was reprinted last year as a special centennial edition. Some of the biggest beneficiaries of this time period are listed here, and you can quickly scan through them because I don't want to take time reading the list. In the 1960s to 70s, when many nonprofit organizations sprouted, Square and Circle donated to help provide startup or seed money. 2 outstanding examples out of many that received the most media attention were, in 1973 for On Law, we raised about $5,000, which is the equivalent of $33,000 today. They told us they bought a much needed car with the donation. In 1990, Asian Women's Shelter received $10,000 from us, or the equivalent of $24,000 today. In addition to philanthropy, the club provided service. As mentioned earlier, Laguna Honda annual holiday visitations began since the 1930s and have continued nonstop to the 21st century. Also during this early period, we volunteered in community health centers, especially Health Center number 4. We assisted with flu shots and put together anti-smoking kits. In the 1990s, we started a Baby Layette project for their maternity ward. We sewed and knitted baby clothes, caps, booties, etc., much like what we did for the Hope Chest. Since the 1950s, we were involved in Chinese New Year festivities per the request of the Chinese Chamber of Commerce. We managed booths and volunteered for the Miss Chinatown USA pageants. In 1961, we were the first women organization to build and enter a float in the parade. We also had many children activities. In 1965, we held our first Easter egg hunt at Portsmouth Square with 200 to 250 children hunting for eggs that were personally cooked and dyed by club members. In 1968, we held an art and fun fair that highlighted children's art. Members handmade 1,000 flowers for the event. Also in 1968, we hosted 100 children to attend a concert starring 13-year-old Yo-Yo Ma. In 1967, we established the Square and Circle Language Arts Program in response to the influx of Chinese children from Hong Kong due to the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act. Classes were held at St. Mary's and then in the club room. The program ended when the San Francisco Unified School District opened the Chinese Education Center, CEC, specifically for new immigrant children. Beginning in the 1970s, the club donated to and volunteered at CEC's Thanksgiving luncheons for immigrant children learning about the holiday. We also volunteer for other venues, like instead of running in track and field like our founding members, we now do walkathons for self-help for the elderly. And we volunteered 4 years for Heart Days conferences ran by the American Heart Association. and an example of civic engagement. In 1969, there was the San Francisco Chinese Community Citizens Survey and Fact-Finding Committee report. Over 60 who's who in the Chinese American community were involved in putting this study together, and we had at least 5 members serving on this committee. And they're listed here: Rosemary Chan, Rachel Hum, Alice Lowe, Catherine Lowe, V. Wong, and more. Now we reach the 21st century. After the war years, the next generation of Square and Circle leaders emerged to wrap up the remaining 20th century and to lead the club into the 21st century. A few of the club's founders had served as presidents, beginning with Alice Fong Yu as the founding president in 1924, and ending with Daisy L. Wong Chin being the last founder to serve as president in 1993. Now, the first 16 charter members are older, mostly married with children, some with grandchildren. They were busy with careers of their own and or had moved out of town. The baton of leadership was passed to a new generation of leaders. Among the most notable presidents of this next generation of leaders are shown here, chronologically based on when they first became president. And please note that there were many other members equally notable who were not presidents. So we start off with Rosemary Chan, Alice Kun Lo, Dorothy Wong, Rachel Hum, Claudia Jung, B. Wong, Doreen Chan Yang, Mary Lee, Shirley Deer, Catherine Deer, and yours truly. With the arrival of the 21st century, the club realized we could not avoid the electronic age any longer. We began setting up email accounts, writing our minutes and reports using programs like Word, PDF, Excel, Google Drive, etc. We learned what was the difference between Mac and PC. We also began to scan, digitize, and photograph our archives that numbered over 30 boxes. Then we developed a website. In anticipation of the upcoming centennial year, it was updated and redesigned. Meanwhile, Square and Circle continued with our mission to serve the community in the 21st century. We continued with donations to humanitarian causes. And you will note that after the 1930s, when we focused mainly on China, most of the humanitarian causes are outside of China, like for the Chinese refugees in Hong Kong, the 9/11 World Trade Center victims, Sichuan, China, Haiti, Japan, Nepal, and last year the Half Moon Bay, California shooting victims, and this year for our centennial, the Maui wildfire victims. We continue with our fashion shows, and our last fashion shows was for our 88th anniversary. We also continue with our annual holiday gift giving, and here is a picture of us collecting socks for the Hamilton House that's for the homeless. We also continue donating to organizations. This is a picture where we donated to the Betty Ong Recreation Center. Scholarships are now offered to graduating high school students instead of just college students, and they're sponsored by the Elaine Jang Scholarship Fund. And for the San Francisco State University scholarships, they're now sponsored by Crystal Jang and Sydney Young. For children, we had arts and crafts booths at the annual San Francisco Botanical Gardens Lunar New Year Flower Market. And also for children, we co-sponsored and volunteered for the annual Asian Pacific Islander American Heritage Month celebration at the San Francisco Main Public Library for the past 7 years. This was a new direction for us. Instead of Chinese cultural arts and crafts, this was directed towards Asian Pacific Islander American cultural arts and crafts. We also continued to serve the elders as recently as this year. collaborating with Unlock for their senior photo days. Then we embarked on some new directions in service. In 1924, we started something new and different. We adopted an organization for a few years and worked together with City College and San Francisco State students for an intergenerational service project. This was an attempt to introduce younger people to the club. The adopted organization was the Gumwon Residence Hall for Women. We taught the students how to knit scarves for the women of Gumwon, and we made stocking snowmen together for their children's program. In return, the students taught us how to use our cell phones and tablet more efficiently. Another new service direction involves the preservation of Chinese American history. We shared and published our Angel Island and World War II veteran family histories, so Chinese American history will not be forgotten. And in 2020, Marysville Bacchai Festival was our very first out-of-town service project that involved an overnight stay. We also marched in the parade, much like how Square and Circle used to participate in the Chinese New Year parades of the 1960s. Then the COVID-19 pandemic hit us and pushed the club to enter the electronic age even faster. We had to quickly learn how to adjust our usual way of doing business. We held our first Zoom general meeting in July. We Zoomed our 27th and 28th anniversaries, and we learned to serve and fundraise differently. Members made greeting cards for seniors, and some sold masks at home, alone, or they met in small groups. For our annual holiday gift giving, we had a special Zoom holiday program and fundraised from among our members for designated service projects. The biggest challenge in fundraising for the club was to start a GoFundMe campaign to raise money for the Chinatown Community Development Center. We were surprised to have raised over $25,000 in 3 weeks. And the biggest challenge of all, planning the centennial entirely in Zoom. So here we are at our centennial. We just celebrated our centennial on June 1st, 2024. San Francisco Mayor London Embry declared June 1st, 2024 as Square and Circle Club Day in San Francisco. And Vice President Kamala Harris sent us a congratulatory letter. Here's a picture of all the members who attended, taken at the end of the event. 41 members out of a 71 membership roster. Not bad. The historical significance of Square and Circle Club. What is the historical significance of Square and Circle Club? It has an impact on Chinese and Asian American history, on American history in general, on American women's history, and on American philanthropy history, an area that no one thinks about, but it is an important to break the stereotype that Chinese Americans in the past did not care to donate to the community. Square and Circle is not just the first Chinese Asian American women's service organization in the country, nor is it just the first Chinese Asian American women's organization to hold a fundraiser, nor is it just the first women's organization to build and enter a float in a Chinatown New Year's parade. It had a bigger impact on our histories. Square and Circle Club was founded during the Chinese exclusion period, where women and children were an extreme minority in Chinatown. In the early days, we had to deal with stereotypes that Chinese women in Chinatown were submissive wives and daughters, and much worse, prostitutes. The Square and Circle women of the time represented the beginnings of Chinese American women who were the first generation born in the United States, educated, worked for a living, and became a growing middle to upper middle class. They went further and did what the Chinatown men and American women did. They were women who protested and held fundraisers to help a community that was unwelcome and ignored by mainstream society. Not only the Square and Circle fundraisers contributed to making life better for the community in terms of everyday survival needs, they also did so in the realm of entertainment. America's cultural and entertainment world ignored Chinese Americans and all minority Americans. In such a world, Square and Circle's fundraisers provided a venue and a face that Chinese Americans could identify with. Their first and subsequent dances provided a place for residents of Chinatown to dance like an American. Their musicals showed that Chinese Americans could sing and dance like Americans. More important, the Chinatown audience were able to go to shows with themes that they could relate to, life in Chinatown. And their fashion shows revealed that Chinese Americans were proud to wear Chinese fashions to showcase their culture, and equally proud to wear mainstream American fashions because Chinese Americans could wear them too. All these types of entertainment came before the days of Chinatown nightclubs, which explains the huge popularity and success of Square and Circle fundraisers. Much has changed for the better today in America. So the early types of benefit shows are not as popular and have become antiquated. Beginning with the 1960s to 70s, many nonprofits began to sprout in Chinatown. Square and Circle helped to provide seed money for some of them. Now these nonprofits have become self-sufficient with a paid staff, board of directors, and office space, and with a large donor base and local, state, and federal grants to support their programs and causes. The need for Square and Circle services was no longer as urgent as it was in the past. Nevertheless, a resilient Square and Circle continues to change with the times. We have maintained our grassroots origins, no staff and no office. We still meet in each other's homes and now via Zoom. Our last fundraisers and centennial celebration were all executed successfully via Zoom. We are now supporting causes that are relatively smaller in scale, causes that do not qualify for usual consideration or do not have the infrastructure to write for grants. More important, we have not forsaken our mission to serve the community. There's so much more to know about Square and Circle. If you want to know more, check out the San Francisco History Center at the San Francisco Public Library, where the club's archives are not housed. Also, from June 15th through September 22nd, there will be a special Square and Circle exhibit in honor of our centennial, both in the 6th and 3rd floor. The 3rd floor has 3 of the original musical posters on display. And there's also the special upcoming 2024 issue of the Chinese Historical Society of America's Journal. This journal is dedicated entirely to Square and Circle. This ends my presentation, and I think there's still time, so I welcome any comments and or questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. And this is an incredibly comprehensive presentation. You know, it's an important history, as we can see, and it just documents really well how it's amazingly involved the women of San Francisco, Chinese American women of San Francisco, have been. Now, I can't find the Q&A listing, and I don't see anything on the chat. So I'm going to maybe see if there's a way we can just open up all of the audio. Susan, are you still on? Do you know how to do that? Or maybe Lorraine, or you might know how to do that.
To what? Open
Open up the audio for everyone, because I can't see any.
Well, I think all the people, the individuals have to do is just unmute themselves,
Yeah, okay,
and
so,
then they
so
can
if you
ask
all can
questions.
hear me, please do unmute. I hear a slight echo, and I don't know whether that's me or not.
Hmm. And
No, I'll just shut myself off. I have two devices on. Anyway, well, I see a question here.
Oh, when did the Women's Federation accept the square and circle? They never did. But
Ooh.
to let you know, a few years after the application was denied, the Federation took away that clause. But
Oh,
square and circle never applied
so,
after that.
so you presumably could have
We could
tried
have if
again.
after they
Yeah.
removed the clause, but
Oh,
square and circle chose not to reapply.
well, kind of shades of Chinese American Citizens Alliance and the Native Sons of the Golden West. You know,
Um,
if you're denied, would we want to go back and join them? So, well, let me throw out a couple of questions though. Well, you've been five-time president. Was any of your family involved before? Your parents, your generation?
for involved with the club, no,
Yes,
I'm the first one.
you're the first one. So
Yeah.
you joined at a fairly young age, or
No, I joined when I was in my 50s, I think.
okay, but
I,
uh,
I didn't join as a young girl, not like the early members. They all joined when they were um, young, and in the early days, the club had something called a junior. You could be a junior member, and one of our recently deceased member, she joined the club when she was in high school.
so I know that.
Elaine Jang joined when she was in high school.
Okay, so there were some fairly young members who joined in.
Right. And that's why we have members today who are over 90 and reaching 100
Wow.
soon.
Okay. I saw one name who had been a five-time president also. I noticed that on your listing.
That's Rachel. She's here. But no one
She's
can
here.
beat
Okay.
Claudia. She's 12 times president.
12 times president.
Yes,
Well,
Claudia.
well, why don't we, since Claudia is on, would you mind unmuting yourself and just sharing a little bit of your thoughts of why you got involved, and how maybe some of your what you felt were some of your most important achievements?
Hi, I'm Claudia, and thank you for asking me. I joined in 1967, so I'm a 53-year member. One of the club members asked me to join, and this is Rosemary Chan. Professionally, she was my mentor, and of course, I admired the women in the club, and I really admired all of what Square and Circle did. So when I was asked to join, in those days, you had to have a sponsor, two sponsors to join. I did not refuse, and I I appreciated the ladies and what they did, and um, that they were all for the same cause to service the community. So for the past 53 years, that's what I have been hoping I've been doing. There are many other members um, here who may want to say something about why they joined and that they're a member of the club.
Okay, well,
So, but I think you should ask Lorraine her first encounter and how she learned about Square and Circle, because I think that's a fascinating story.
okay. Well, here's the question, Lorraine. It's put to you. Okay.
Okay. My very first scholarship in college, I went to San Francisco State, was from Square and Circle. I had I was given $150 for a whole year. And that actually paid for my tuition. I didn't know what square and circle was. I was told by the administration, said, oh, you got $150 from Square and Circle. Just write them a thank you letter. So I wrote them a thank you letter, and the name just got wiped off of I didn't think about it until the 1990s. I met someone named Alice Lowe, and she's connected to Arthur because she had asked Arthur to be in a panel in the Asian Art Museum. And somehow she just bumped into me and then said, oh, I'm a member of Square and Circle. Then all of a sudden it clicked in my head. Square and Circle, I remember that name. That was a long time ago. I got my scholarship. And I told her that, and she sort of like sponsored me into the club. And that's how I started um, being part of the club.
So,
Is that interesting or not?
oh, yeah. Well, I say,
But there are two other scholarship recipients who joined the club because of getting a scholarship from the club. So the
are they on?
scholarships did make a big difference in terms of some of us where we came back and to be with the club to serve the community.
Well, it's actually an incredible record of service, actually, just what you recounted to me. But did the Square and Circle network with clubs in other communities like Los Angeles or Seattle or other towns?
Well, I forgot the year, but there was one year there was a group of women in Los Angeles who wanted to do a branch Square and Circle in Los Angeles. And they wrote to Square and Circle and asked for their opinion um, and their permission to have a branch Square and Circle in Los Angeles. Unfortunately, the club, they discussed it and they said it was, I don't know, it's just too much for them. And they said no, and they told the group of women to form their own club without using the name Square and Circle. There was another group in Canada that wrote to Square and Circle and asked permission to use their name, but not be affiliated with Square and Circle. So Square and Circle definitely said no to that request.
I see Don Lu originally from Vancouver is online here, and maybe he might have something to comment. I need to walk away to answer the front door because someone's there, but you can continue as moderator. I'll be right back.
Okay. I'm gonna answer Munson's question. He sees Clarice's name, Clarice Sham Nguyen, who is a brand new member. She is actually the granddaughter of one of our co-founders, Bessie Wong Sham. And maybe, I don't know if she feels like she would like to ask another question that's here. There's a question that says, where do you see Square and Circle in 20, 50, or even 100 years from now? I don't know if I'm going to be around in 20 years, but all I have to say is that Square and Circle depends on its next generation to come up with new ideas to fit the new times and come up with new ways and new ideas on how to serve the community. And Carice, would you like to say anything as a brand new member of Square and Circle and share how you feel about being a club member for what? A couple months?
months.
Yes,
Yeah,
Carice.
hi. I don't know if my video is working. I'm actually on my phone, so the only thing I could see is,
Oh,
oops.
okay.
Can you hear me now? Sorry about
Yes.
that.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, for some reason I'm in safe driving mode, even though I'm not driving. So, yeah, I'm a new member. I just joined a couple months ago, maybe 3. So, I've been wanting to join for quite a long time. I just finally got around to it. So I'm really, really excited. I went to the 100th anniversary celebration last week and it was fabulous. And just learning about the history of Square and Circle. I grew up going to some of the events because my grandmother was active, and it's so neat to be part of it now and just be a member. And I just love all the history, and I really appreciate you taking the time, Lorraine, to put everything together. But it's so fascinating to see that this is part of,
Oh,
my heritage and so many other people's heritage. So I don't know. I think you asked the question, where do you see the club in another 20 years? Is that what was asked?
yeah, I see in the chat, it says 20, 50, or even 100 years from now.
Oh, yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm excited for the journey, but what I gleaned from listening to you is how the club, they held true to what they believed was important, but they did adapt to the times, and even with the pandemic, adapting to Zoom and being able to put together a fabulous celebration last weekend over Zoom. So I'm not really sure what the future holds, but I know that all the members would have the skills and all the intellect to be able to adapt to whatever comes our way.
Everything always depends on the next generation
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, we're up for it.
Good,
We're up
great.
for it. We're here.
Okay.
I'm trying to recruit some of my cousins, so we'll see.
Oh, okay.
They're
You
very
might have a
interested.
whole Shum clan coming.
Maybe, yeah, I'm hoping. They were like, why didn't we join? And I'm like, well, you need to now. So really hoping for that. But thank you so much.
Okay.
Lorraine,
I-
where do the men stand, by the way? You know, what's the relationship with let's say the family associations or other male dominated social clubs?
Oh, I don't know.
Is there kind of competition? Do the men get out
No,
and
I don't think we
do
competed.
charitable work?
I don't remember the male organization. There was one occasion where the club did collaborate with a male organization on a service project, and in the minutes they were really proud of it and say that it worked, we could do it. But I'm not sure. Claudia, Rachel is another person who's been a member for a really long time. Maybe she can add something. I thought you were talking about the men in the um, members' lives,
No,
the husbands.
I'm thinking of the men in the community.
Mm.
Since the Tongs and the family associations tended to be dominated by the men. So
That's what made the history so fascinating,
yeah.
because here you have not just an all-women's organization, but they were American-born women. And and I think the male organizations at that time and through the war years, they were, I think, initially shocked at what the ladies could do, raising money just like that. And they really respected them because these women were also invited to be part of many of the Chinatown organization, what do you call it, the committees. Now, if these all male organizations did not respect these women, they would not have invited them to be part of their committees in some decision making.
And speaking of American-born women, you know, the Cable Act was still in place. So since these were mostly American-born young ladies and girls, was there some goal of actually getting into that political debate or trying to get that Cable Act reversed?
Uh, Not necessarily that, but we have one member, um, and actually it's Clarice's grandmother who was affected by the Cable Act. And Emily Salcido, who's here, I don't know if she feels up to talking because she's recuperating.
For those
Maybe she
who
can talk a little bit about what happened to Bessie Shum when she married someone who was not a citizen.
Yeah.
Emily, are you up to it?
Yeah.
Or unless Carice knows that history. Oh, Emily, you're on?
Hey.
Hi,
Hello,
Emily.
everybody. Excuse me, I just got back from a trip and I'm under the weather. But what Lorraine is referring to is when Bessie Wong married her husband, Edward Shum. Edward was not an American citizen. And at that time, under the Cable Act, and this didn't just apply to Chinese brides, but just, how should I say, brides that married somebody who was not an American citizen, they were required to renounce their citizenship and take the citizenship of their husband. And so Bessie had no choice. Although she was born in the United States, she had to give up her citizenship and take on the Chinese citizenship, which is her husband was born in China. So after they had to leave the United States, they went and settled in China, and eventually her citizenship was reinstated, but it took a while, and it really transformed their lives.
So do we know if the club then took a policy position or advocacy position on this?
I don't think that
No.
they did. I mean, this was federal law,
Mhm.
and it was eventually rescinded. But in the meanwhile, women were impacted, not just not just US women again, but any woman who married a non-US citizen.
I saw in Lorraine's presentation this advertisement where, you know, in the paper that asked people to write their congressman today, asking him to repeal. And so obviously all the elected Congress people were men at that time.
That's true.
Yeah.
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 So,
Munson, your mother was involved with Square and Circles. Can you tell us a little bit about her? You know, unmute yourself.
Hi. Yeah, that's true. I guess she was among maybe the second group when it was first founded. She was probably, remembering her age now, 1924, she'd be 14, but I think within a few years, and maybe you mentioned that you had a junior unit, she was pretty actively involved within 2 or 3 years. And I
And
think I
her
caught a
name,
couple of pictures of her involved in the earliest days, especially before World War II.
and her name.
And that leads to my comment. You asked about what was the role of men, and not the organizations necessarily, but the relatives, husbands, boyfriends, and I guess brothers and so on would help out as they would. If you can imagine mounting a production for anything, fashion show, or actual performance, theater performance, required a lot of work that backstage and stuff like that. I think one of the pictures you have actually in the 1930s of the entire cast and crew in the back does show some guys in the back row. Thought I saw my dad.
Okay, and
I
their
wouldn't be
names were,
surprised, Munson.
Yeah, I
and
have
the
to look
name,
more carefully, Lorraine.
Munson, your mother's name was?
Pearl Janet Liu, before she married into the Kwok family. Lew.
And actually, Munson, I did the research. Your mom was president in 1936.
Yeah, probably that makes sense. I was born in 41, and by that time, family became a priority from then on, as did happen with a lot of ladies and members. But they always came back for the special events and the anniversaries and participated, even if they couldn't physically come out to everything. I do remember that.
So
You,
I
you
had the-
never, you never, you never divorced from the club. And us who are descendants, a few of us here today, and I'm of the wrong gender, kind of still am connected. It's a wonderful presentation that you did tonight, Lorraine.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry you missed the celebration on Saturday.
We had some unfortunate things to do elsewhere in the city.
But congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. I'm always very excited. It looks like it was a very successful event and well recognized.
It's
Well,
an amazing record of service, I have to say. It just boggles the mind how much you have done over the years. I want to read a comment from Caress. My grandmother, Bessie Wong Shum, had to appeal to come back to the States for many years. My father was raised by his aunts in China until she could petition and afford to bring him over. He was the third child. So that is a great illustration of the impact of some of our immigration laws upon the lives of some of our earlier generations. And it also shows the resilience and the ability of some of our earlier generations to bounce back and to fight off. Are there any other questions? I'm having a little difficulty scrolling up and down my.
I see a question from Marjorie that I don't quite understand. Something about why did we decide the second cookbook would take a different focus than the first? Marjorie, what did you mean by that? Is Marjorie still here?
Margie, you can unmute. If it's our Margie. Marjorie?
Marjorie, she's still there? Yeah, there she is. I see her.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear.
Sorry, I'm driving home from work, but I dare not miss a moment with Square and Circle. So I'm sorry, Lorraine.
What?
I guess my question is, I have two editions. One is the yellow cover, the other one the orange cover.
Yeah.
And so I can see that the one is not, they're not like a first and second edition. It almost seems as if the recipes are entirely different.
Yes, all four of our cookbooks are entirely different. They're not like first, second printing. They're
Okay,
actually totally different. And if you have, I think orange is the first edition. You got a rare edition. Because
yeah, I was very
that cookbook
lucky.
is very, you better hold on to it tight.
Okay, ma'am, thank you very much for the affirmation. It's not
So-
very clear. And then the yellow one, it's what I first was drawn to by my former roommate when I was in grad school. And it was like, wow, it's the next best thing since sliced bread. But I didn't quite know what its origins were or its provenance. And then I did hear rumblings that there was yet two additional editions, or two, I guess they're not editions,
Yeah, two other different cookbooks.
two additional cookbooks to your
Yeah.
series.
Yes, there's 4 in the series.
Right.
So
So
how do we buy one?
Easy, go online.
Okay.
so Eugene doesn't
No,
want to know the
we
answer
only
to my
have,
question. He just wants to
Fine.
buy them.
Uh-huh.
I think that's a
we only
great
have
idea.
2 left. One is the blue edition, blue cookbook, which is
what?
the 4th cookbook. And then we have our centennial cookbook. which is a reprint. Now, this is a reprint of our very first cookbook, which is the most popular cookbook that we have. And it's in high demand. So we decided to reprint cookbook #1 as part of our centennial celebration. And
What's
the
cookbook 3
centennial,
about?
huh?
Excuse me. Please,
What?
please continue. That's
Oh,
okay. You continue.
and then the Centennial Cookbook has archival pictures covering our 100 years. And it also has an expanded glossary where we have included Chinese characters for all
Darn
the
it.
for all the ingredients in it. And you're gonna love
Darn
this,
it.
Marjorie. Marlon did all the transcriptions.
Oh yeah. Okay. Now,
All
now you
the
made
all
me.
the
Now I have to
ingredients.
buy it.
Yeah.
See, all the ingredients written in the 1970s recipes, they were all transcribed in the
Oh my
local
gosh.
dialects spoken by the people in China at that time. So
Marlon
some of
has
the
a. Oh
ingredients,
wow.
they're all in different dialects, and you have to figure out what the dialect is so that you can transcribe it into Chinese characters so that everybody, because Chinese characters are universal, so that you can
Right.
understand what the
Right.
ingredients are in Chinese.
So it's mostly.
Oh, well, thank you. Marlon's calligraphy style is so beautiful.
Well, he had his calligraphy is not there. He's just transcribing.
Oh, he just transcribed it? Ah,
Yeah,
okay,
he's
then we know that
transcribing them into
it's
Chinese
genuine.
characters.
Oh, that it's genuine then. Okay.
Okay, there's another question here that's asked what's the occupations of the members. A lot of them, they're pretty, what is the word? Pink collar or whatever. They, many of them are teachers. That's why you see a lot of focus on children's programs, service programs in the club. We have bank people who work in the bank managers, um, people who work in insurance companies. Let's see, some of them, we have receptionists, we have nurses, we have pharmacists. So it's a whole range of occupations. They're mostly the kinds of occupation you would expect middle class uh, people to be engaged in and upper middle class. Is there anything
Oh,
else?
remind us about the exhibit that's going to be at the San Francisco Public Library. I think
Okay,
I've seen
that's going to start in a couple, maybe in less than 2 weeks. It's going to start in June 15th and it'll end on September 22nd. And if you're going to be in town, there's going to be a reception and gallery talk on June 22nd, a Saturday.
June 22nd.
Yeah, that's a
Reception.
Saturday. If those of you in Southern California, if you're in town on June 22nd.
Okay.
So it's an exhibit that showcases what the San Francisco History Center now has that we gave to them because all our archives is there now. Everything's there. So they want to showcase some of the items in the archives.
Is there any kind of catalog that comes with it?
No, not yet, because we just turned over 20 plus boxes to them in May. They haven't had time to sort everything out yet or catalog them, all the items. There's literally, thousands of pictures that they have to catalog. And I don't know how long it's going to take them. It's going to take an awfully long time. And I don't know how people will have access to them because usually libraries and museums, they don't give you access to anything unless it's cataloged.
You mentioned that all this work has been done without an office and without staff.
Yep.
And I find that
All
pretty,
volunteer.
all volunteer. Yeah, that's
All
pretty
volunteer.
incredible. So where
Oh.
has where has all the material been stored then? I guess in members' homes?
No, we actually paid for a public to rent a storage facility,
Okay.
which is killing us because it's so expensive.
So as part of this exhibition, then I guess perhaps there would be an effort at digitizing some or all of the material.
Well, I am going to assume the library would do that, but I'll let you know that we have digitized everything before we turn everything to them.
Okay, great.
And that was, we actually had interns to do that for us, and it took about 5 years to do it.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Lorraine, I think to go back to Eugene's question a couple of questions ago, and he asked if Square and Circle's archives have been cataloged. I think we need to say that the first set of archives that we gave to the
Oh, yeah.
library are categorized. So they're categorized up until the year, what, Lorraine?
2010, but it's incomplete in
Right,
terms of
but
the
at least part of
total.
it is categorized. And then I want to say one more thing. When asked how would you order cookbooks? Go to squareandcircleclub.org and click on sales. And that's how you can order cookbooks. Cookbook 1, 2, volumes 1, 2, 3 are sold out. So we have volume 4 for sale and our Centennial Cookbook for sale. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Which,
I put our website link in the chat for anyone who's interested. This is Emily, by the way.
great. So which one has a recipe for red eggs and ginger ingredients?
I think the first cookbook has it.
Okay,
The Centennial,
Yeah.
a reprint of volume 1 is now volume volume 5 and is on sale now. It's our Centennial Cookbook, and you'll find the recipe in that cookbook. So you need to buy the cookbook.
okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
the first volume had a lot of traditional village recipes because they're all passed down from Claudia, you can tell a story how those recipes got passed on. They were
Yeah, the
tried.
recipes, those recipes, that's why it was such a popular volume or cookbook, our first one. They're recipes that had never been written down. So a family member stood next to their elder or whoever was cooking and would try to begin to write down the amount of ingredients that's put in. You know that the good cooks just throw in the ingredients. They don't measure. They know how much to put in. So then the members who wrote down or try to write down the recipes tried it over and over until it was perfected. And then it was submitted to the cookbook. So many of the Chinese recipes in the cookbook that is on sale now were written down through the family for the first time.
Okay, that's great. If you'll permit me, I want to kind of take put on the table a little question about maybe political or community involvement. So seeing that the early engagement was to support flood and famine and other victims in China, is there something being done locally to help with, let's say, things like homelessness? Are there Chinese or Asian American homeless folks that perhaps need help and the club might be looking into to provide aid? And then kind of another step up is, given the level of anti-Asian rhetoric out there, whether it's dealing with the Asian virus or immigration, and is there some, maybe are there some initiatives that the club might be taking with respect to something on a more community, social, political level? I know that's a multiple question, but
Well, Emily, you want to answer about the homeless, serving the homeless? Because Emily's our first vice president in service.
Yes, we the way that we serve the community, including homeless, and also to address anti-Asian sentiment. We do look at projects, other community-based organizations that are focusing specifically on homeless. They may not be targeted only at Asian American homeless, but we do look at those organizations that include Asian American homeless when we will donate or support organizations. So homeless, we, as a result of the Half Moon Bay shooting that Lorraine had mentioned 2 years ago, we did contribute to organizations that were supporting the victims and the families of the of victims of that mass shooting. So we do try and look at those and support those as they come up.
Yeah. So Emily, can I piggyback on what you were saying?
Sure.
Okay, so this is Sharon, and I'm a member of Emily's Committee on Service, and we have continued to support Francisco Middle School, who have identified at least over 50 homeless students. Homeless meaning that they sleep either in trucks, buses, or cars. They don't actually have a place to go to. And so what Francisco Middle School does is to provide support in terms of supply. It could be clothing, it could be materials, anything that would help them transition in middle school at a much safer and meaningful way. One of the examples that I was given is that, this particular fund is, the teachers are in charge, and the person that we have been in contact with is a PE teacher. And she had a student, and she was wondering why the student, very athletic, did not participate in sports. And so she asked the student, why aren't you signing up for this particular sport? You know, you're very capable. And the student says, I don't have proper shoes. So the teacher took the student to an athletic store and bought proper shoes so that the students could participate out of the fund that we donated to. So that's one example in terms of your question on homeless. So I hope
That's
that
great.
answers. Yeah, it's ongoing too. One year they did a GoFundMe, which they raised, they reached their goal, they had another goal, they had another goal. It was to provide $50 gift cards to Safeway so they could buy and have some things that would remind them of the celebration of Thanksgiving, how to be thankful. And so that's another way too. And this fund is ongoing. So we're really proud to be part of that particular service to this middle school.
Well, we're proud of you that you're taking this initiative to help people.
Yeah, and the commitment that Square and Circle is just, it's unbelievable. You just have to see it to believe it.
Yeah.
You have to be part of it.
Yeah.
We,
So-
we do try and respond to smaller organizations, not the bigger ones. We feel that sometimes the smaller organizations have needs that aren't necessarily publicized. So when we do find those out, we try and support those as much as possible.
Are there any members who are not Asian?
Yes,
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
but it's very small. It's just like one or two. And it's just like members who are male. We always get one or two, but not, like large numbers of them.
Okay. It sounds like you may interact with other community groups.
Oh, yeah. Emily, you should mention if you went to Maui Strong,
Yes. Well, our recent donation was in response to the Maui wildfires, and we actually teamed up with Hawaii Community Foundation's Maui Strong Fund, or to donate to the Maui Strong Fund to help them with their recovery. And yes, that was our last big fundraiser.
Okay, that's great. So essentially, it's an example of your vision of philanthropy. You're not only helping within the community itself, but you're helping outside too.
Mhm.
Yes, we look back at that as tying in with our roots 100 years ago when we gave to victims of the flood and famine in China. So yeah, we started as with an international donation, our club.
Great. Okay. We are well past our normal closing time. So what I'd like to do is to maybe ask everyone for a round of applause for our speaker, for Lorraine, and actually everyone else who contributed today. And
Thank
standing
you.
ovation. Uh,
I have a quick question for Lorraine. My name is Cindy Yee, and great presentation. I really enjoyed it. And I see your brother is in on the Zoom, and I was wondering if he would consider doing a documentary since he's a filmmaker. This would be great so that you could then share your 100 years with other community people, like even in Hawaii, where women could follow your example to rebuild their communities.
That's a question you have to ask Arthur. Arthur's really busy. He's really busy on a project that I love, and I want him to work and finish that project.
Yeah.
Oh, he could do a second one.
Well, anyway, well, as I have to basically wrap up the program for tonight, but again, thank you, Lorraine, for
Okay.
sharing your very, very comprehensive history. It's amazing what you put together, and I'm looking forward to actually making a trip to the San Francisco Public Library to see the exhibition too. One of the things that so now I'll just make a couple of quick announcements for the Chinese Historical Society of Southern California's programs. We do have registration open for our Yosemite pilgrimage. For those of you who may not be aware, the Historical Society has been involved in coordinating trips to Yosemite to hike some of the trails and see some of the places that were developed with the assistance of our early Chinese pioneers, Chinese American pioneers, whether it would be constructing a trail or working the laundry that served the hotels or cooking in the kitchens and many other things, growing a vegetable garden that served the hotel guests also. So there's a lot to see and learn about the Sierras, about the Chinese in the Sierras. And this year, the Historical Society is again going to have its pilgrimage. It's a two-part program, actually. One part is for us people who like easy hikes, and we can walk through some of the places in Tuolumne Meadows or to May Lake. But there are others who like to backpack, and they can actually join the backpacking trip to Sing Peak, which was named after Tai Sing, the Chinese American mountain chef who worked for the U.S. Geological Survey for many years, and whose legacy is really a mountain peak at the southern edge of Yosemite. So there's a group of hardy backpackers who hike up there every year. Right at the moment, the 3 trail permits that are available are all fully subscribed. So unless a couple of people drop out, there aren't any openings, but we can put you on the list. In the meantime, for those who would like to join us on some of the fun things that we do in Yosemite, please see our website at chssc.org, chssc.org, and you will see the announcement for the Yosemite pilgrimage. And please, I hope you can join us. People come from all directions, actually, from the Bay Area, from Sacramento, and as well as from Southern California. So it's not just for CHSSC members. One more announcement. Our program year actually begins in the fall, and we are always looking for speakers and scholars, or just plain community people who are engaged and involved in community activities. Well, tonight's program is a great example of that, of people who have been involved in one community organization that has been around and served the community for 100 years. So we're always looking for some histories that can be shared, some histories that could make us more whole as a community, whole as individuals, to help establish our identity as Chinese Americans. So we're taking a break in the summer, except for our July Sing Peak trip. So in the meantime, if any of you have suggestions for speakers, please contact us at our website, and our email address is info at chssc.org. So if without any, I don't see any other questions in the chat. So I'm going to wish you all a good evening, and thank you all for joining us. And thank you, Lorraine, for a great close to our program year. Wish you all a good evening. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Bye, Nate.